And as the Hong Kong court orders the liquidation of China's Evergrande, the world's most indebted developer, we focus on the aftermath, exploring challenges creditors face in recovering those debts, the complex web of Evergrande's assets and the potential impact on China's broader property market. Take a look at this report.
A Hong Kong court has issued a liquidation order for China Evergrande, the world's most indebted developer. With $240 billion in assets, this decision has sent shockwaves through Chinese capital and property markets. Amid the chaos, the complex process of liquidation begins. Provisional and official liquidators will take control of Evergrande's assets, aiming to recoup some of the outstanding debts. However, the path ahead is riddled with challenges. Most of Evergrande's valuable assets have already been seized by creditors or are tied up in unfinished projects. The remaining holdings, mainly concentrated in two listed subsidiaries, hold significantly diminished value. Creditors holding offshore debt might receive a 3.4% recovery rate, as estimated by Deloitte, if sufficient assets can be liquidated. However, with ongoing investigations into the company's leadership, this number could shrink further. The impact of Evergrande's demise extends far beyond financial figures. Thousands of homeowners face the prospect of unfinished apartments and uncertain futures. Political and social factors add another layer of complexity as authorities balance the need for stability with the demands of creditors and the anxieties of the public. While Evergrande's collapse has reverberations in global markets, it may not offer a blueprint for other embattled developers. The sheer scale of Evergrande's projects and debts involves numerous authorities and political considerations. As the liquidation unfolds, the focus remains on completing ongoing home construction projects, a top priority for both the company and the government. But the real question is, will Evergrande's liquidation serve as a cautionary tale or a blueprint for handling future defaults in the property sector? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
For more on this, we're now being joined by Simon Lee, Honorary Fellow from APIB, the Chinese University, Hong Kong. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for your invitation.
Now, to begin with, could you elaborate on the challenges creditors face in recovering debts?
Now, there are two sides. One is within China, one is outside China. For those outside China, I think it takes time to enforce the liquidation process. But eventually, what the creditors receive will be a very low percentage. As what the news just quote, they not quote 3.4%. Eventually, I think maybe 1 or 2% or even lower. So it takes time. But those assets which credited may have hope within China, I think it's very difficult because in China, it has no obligation to enforce the liquidation decision made by the Hong Kong court. So this is a challenge. In fact, from day one, when many mainland enterprise listed in Hong Kong, the cross-border law and enforcement is already a questionable issue.
All right, so I also wanted to understand how might the liquidation of Evergrande influence the broader Chinese capital and property markets? Are there potential ripple effects on a global scale here?
No, I don't think it will spread over to global scale because as big renminbi is not a free flow currency. And I think to the most extent is that the offshore creditors will suffer. But then because they exercise good risk control measure, say for the banks, and then they won't lend too much to a particular company. And the market has already digested the negative news. But within China, I think the government would intervene for those not yet completed home. I think that it will lead to stability issue. So eventually, I think the government will intervene a bit because harmony and stability are so important in mainland China. But it may not serve as a so-called a blueprint for future. It will be on a case-by-case basis. I think it's a good testing ground that liquidation of so-called a big giant, a big company would lead to the stability issue. The government would definitely learn a lesson from it. It's better for the government to put everything under control at the very beginning. I think the most negative side of this incident is that that issue has been prevailing in the property market for so many years. It was not handled properly at the very beginning, so it's now led to such disaster.
All right. Well, Mr. Lee, thank you so much for bringing us your insights on this. We'll, of course, continue to track this closely.